Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
It's so nice to virtually connect, finally.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me today. And maybe you can just introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Rohan. My Instagram is Soy Nation, SOI Nation. I'm 25 years old. I've been bodybuilding for about 8 years now. 5.5 of those years have been 100% vegan. I was born and raised vegetarian, and I went vegan around 5.5 years ago. I was already into bodybuilding, but I'd switched directly to a vegan diet. And yeah, actually, I work full time as an electrical engineer. I'm also in graduate school studying for my master's as well, part time. So between work, school, and bodybuilding, those take most of my time up. And yeah, I'd say back in college is when I experimented more with bodybuilding and different diets, training, used to train people and stuff. So that's what I got most of my experience and information from. And now it's just like a hobby I do for fun at this point.
Let's go back to when you became vegan, because one of the main points I had you on here today was to talk about, your journey transitioning to vegan and then like your bodybuilding journey.
Okay. So I was born and raised vegetarian. It's probably one or 2 years when I was a child that I ate meat just for my parents fed me. I was too young to really make my own decisions. Then I went back to being vegetarian, and then maybe there was around a year in college where a doctor told me I need to eat fish to get omega-3s in. So I ate fish for like 6 months. And then once I learned about the industry, what happens, and animal agriculture, the environment, health, everything. Once I learned about the truth behind all this stuff, that's when I just jumped right into a vegan diet.
But where did you read about this stuff? Because you mentioned you were in like high school or college. Did it just come across on social media?
Yeah. So there's this YouTube video called "The Greatest Speech You Will Ever Hear" by Gary Yourofsky, and it's one of my roommate actually in college. He saw it at the time and told me I have to watch this video. And so I watched it with him, and we both went vegan after that. It was 100% ethical. And that's what I really think veganism is about. It's, I mean, the reasons a lot of people get into veganism is for their health or the environment, but veganism itself is 100% an ethical lifestyle, and it goes more than just your diet. So that's what the video was. It was Gary Yourofsky. He's a retired activist, but he used to go to different universities in lecture halls and give speeches. It'd be like a 45-minute speech, and you show a 5-minute video of just behind the scenes of what happens at these industries. And so yeah, it was a very impactful video that opened my eyes right away. I just think that's the impact of social media, that a lot of us wouldn't know what happens and transition our diets or know where our food comes from until we see these videos. There's two different views. Some people will have a big impact when they learn about the truth, and other people will be kind of get defensive and turn the other blind eye to it. Mm-hmm. So I was one of those people that instantly, it opened my eyes. I wanted to make a change.
That's a good point. And your roommate too. So you guys like both just jumped into it. So how did that work out? Like cold turkey, like overnight?
For me, it wasn't as difficult because I was vegetarian prior. For him, he used to eat a lot of meat. Just grew up that way. And we both switched during college. So in our dining hall, we had tofu already. So we just switched our protein. I think they had soy milk, and we already had substitutes in there, which made it easier to transition, which, I mean, I can get into that later, but I think for transitioning today, it's really convenient how we have all these different substitutes, and you don't have to jump right into eating, whole plants if you don't want to immediately.
What year was this in?
I believe it was 2016, January 2016.
How did you find the range of vegan options as compared to now, like 5 years later?
Well, like I said, I used to eat a lot in the dining hall, so I guess tofu and plant milks was the biggest switch. There was no vegan cheeses or mock meats and stuff. It wasn't until maybe a year into veganism where I started living away from college and buying my own food that Gardein, all those different brands were out there. That was really convenient. Convenient to just have a dining hall to make those transitions. But I was one of those people who said I could never go vegan. I could never give up cheese. I love pizza, mozzarella sticks, all that stuff. And you don't realize until you actually get off of it how it's that casein in there. It's an addiction in your brain. So casein it's found. It's like a protein that's in dairy, and it causes this addictive. It's like an addictive substance for your brain, similar to I guess nicotine and other addictive substances. It tells you need to have it. I wouldn't say there's withdrawals from it, but it's something that keeps a lot of people hooked to dairy, and people think they can't give it up. But it's once you get off of it, just like once you stop, nicotine or any other addiction, and you recover from it, it's something you realize you didn't need, and it was actually hurting you the whole time. For me, it's weird because I didn't think it was difficult at all to transition to a vegan diet. I just cut out all dairy, and my diet became, I'd say, probably from like 40% carb, 40%, 40% fat to like 60% carb, 20 to 30% fat. And I didn't replace those cheese and dairy with anything else. I just had carbs instead. And that's another reason how my training improved a lot. My recovery improved a lot, cutting out those fats.
Did you research on any supplements or like before jumping in?
Yeah. So of course, on a vegan diet, they always tell you need B12. It's a big one. Omega-3s. And so I did look into this. Well, first off, let me say B12 comes from dirt. It's found in soil, and humans never really had an issue hundreds, thousands of years ago with B12 because our fruits or vegetables, they wouldn't be as clean, have all these pesticides and stuff as we do now. So they would get B12 from dirtier foods. Today, we have a lot better hygiene. Just the way food is grown, it's hard to find B12 in dirt and water as it comes naturally. So animals are actually injected with it, with hormones and stuff, and that's how meat eaters would get B12. But I was also looking into people who are deficient in B12, and the majority of those people are actually not vegan at all. The majority of B12 deficient people actually eat meat. So everyone always points fingers at vegans for being deficient, but majority of deficient people actually eat meat.
Why do you think that is? I didn't know that it was found in dirt because I'd always heard that being vegan, you need to supplement with B12 because I thought that B12 was like, I don't know, when animals were eating whatever they were eating, it was somehow just found in their bodies. I wasn't exactly sure on that.
I've heard of that too, how there is in their gut or in their intestines, there's like another source of B12. I mean, that's clearly not, I don't consider that a natural source where B12 is created. B12
and you said they're injected, right? So it's not natural anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like we're eating their intestines anyways. It's injected into them, which is how meat eaters would get their B12.
So it's not like the animals are like whatever they're eating in grass or whatever. It's not in there.
No, they're actually supplemented with it.
Yeah, I wonder why most people who are deficient would be meat eaters.
Yeah, so actually, in 2021, like soy milk, plant milks, nutritional yeast, all this stuff has B12 in it, fortified with it, just like animal products are. So now B12 is found in anything, but I still personally take a B12 supplement. I think that's an important one, and vitamin D3 and omega-3s. I think whether you're vegan or not, these three are important.
Can you talk a bit about why D3 and omega-3 are important and like where you would find them?
So yeah, B12, like I said, originates in dirt. Omega-3s, when I used to eat fish a few years back, 6-7 years back, before I went vegan, a doctor told me I need to eat fish to get omega-3s, but omega-3s don't come from fish. They come from sea plants and algae, and fish are the middlemen that eat these sea plants, and then people eat fish to get them. But they don't understand they're also getting all these toxins like mercury and all these other bad substances into their body when they could go directly to the algae. So, I think it's much smarter to take a supplement for omega-3s instead of eat fish, which have all these other toxins. But also you can find omega-3s in other plant-based foods too. It's just the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6.
They're just two types of fatty acids. Like it's recommended to take omega-3 and 6.
There's a ratio. I think it's 1 to 2 or 1 to 1. I'm not exactly sure the ratio, but there's like an optimal ratio for health. Again, the original source comes from plants, but they, a lot of doctors recommend taking fish oil tablets or eating fish. And then the last supplement is D3, vitamin D3. Again, This is found naturally through the sun, so you don't need to eat animal products for it either. Although you can, all these animal products that people eat thinking they need to get D3, B12, omega 3s, they're supplemented with them when you can just take the supplement yourself and avoid all those other toxins. It's not like they're naturally found in animals. They're actually naturally found in nature and plants. So it's smarter to take a supplement or get them naturally.
So then where did you go from there? Because this was like just a few years ago. So if you were bodybuilding for 8 years, then you were already weight training during that time. How did you find that? Did you see that it affected your performance? Because you said that it had helped your recovery, right?
Yeah. So at the time, I was into bodybuilding for around 2.5 years. And when I made the transition, I was thinking in my head, all right, I just want to maintain right now. I'm not, while I get used to this vegan diet, I just don't want to lose muscle. And that was my mindset going in. When actually the opposite happened. And it's like all my lifts that were plateauing started going up. My recovery doubled almost. I was recovering twice as fast. And actually, if you, one of the very popular vegan bodybuilders, Nimai Delgado, who used to eat a lot of dairy, that's one thing he always talks about. His recovery was so quick that he could just train again and was able to optimize his training. So I noticed all my weights are going up, my recovery is improving, my mood's improving, like all this stuff that it's like the opposite of what I thought would happen when I switched to a plant-based diet, a vegan diet. And when in my head, I was just doing it for ethical reasons.
Why exactly does it help recovery to eat plant-based? Like, why does it help your gains and your recovery versus eating animal products?
So animal products are very acidic and inflammatory, which is the exact opposite of what, not only as a bodybuilder or athlete, but as a human being, we're naturally very alkaline. We only eat lots of antioxidants and alkaline foods, and all that alkaline, all the antioxidants and alkalinity comes from plants, not from animals. You're actually, causing meat is one of the hardest things for your body to digest. And eating all these animal products, it's actually slowing down your recovery. I used to have joint pain and all these other things that affected my training in a negative aspect when I thought it was normal, and going vegan would make it worse. All these things that were hurting me, I didn't even notice till I took all this stuff out of my diet. People always say you need to drink milk to get your calcium, but when you put something so acidic into a human body, your body tries to neutralize it, and it does that by leaching calcium from your bones to neutralize it. So you're consuming X amount of calcium, but you're losing much more than that just from consuming it. So the calcium is really irrelevant, and it's actually hurting your bones a lot. I know there's a lot of studies out there showing how the highest fracture rates, higher fracture rate countries have the highest dairy consumption.
Like highest rates of osteoporosis had like the highest dairy consumption. Yeah. No, I was going to just mention that too. That was very interesting. I don't remember where I read it, but I also seen that somewhere. You said you moved out, right? And lived by yourself after like not using the dining hall at some point. So when you didn't have access to the dining hall anymore, how did you find it then? Because you had to cook all your meals, you had to plan out your budget. Like, did you find that it was expensive eating vegan food? Like, how did that go? How did you meal prep? Because you hadn't had to cook any vegan food since you were using the dining hall during your transition.
So veganism can be expensive, or it could be the cheapest diet in the world, depending on how you eat. And when I transitioned, and this is how I think most people should transition, is using substitutes. So I'd use, Gardein has a lot of mock meats. So I'd use those plant-based milks, cheeses, just using substitutes. And that can be very expensive. Those products are not, over time, now that veganism is growing, the prices are dropping, but it's still very expensive to go that route. I think it's great to transition that way. And that's what I did early on in college. And then I slowly transitioned into a whole foods diet, eating food straight grown from the ground. And that's the cheapest food in the world. Rice, beans, legumes, veggies can be super cheap. And especially if you don't buy organic, I think you should, of course, but it can be, it's the cheapest diet in the world to eat that stuff. And I didn't do it for economic reasons. I just did it because I noticed the cleaner I ate, the better I felt, the better my recovery was. And also when you diet and you're eating these large meals, you feel fuller, helps a lot. So I think having substitutes is great, but it can be expensive too. So it depends on your budget compared to your transition to the ratio of that.
Okay. Since you were weightlifting at the time, then what were your go-to meals when you started cooking at home?
So, I mean, this is what I used to do back in the day. It's different what I do now, but I used to buy Gardine's vegan chicken and have that with rice and veggies. That'd be a very common meal. Just having some type of mock meat with rice or pasta and vegetables. Um, I see a lot of sandwiches with tofurkey. Tofurkey has a lot of different deli slices, all vegan substitutes. And then breakfast, oatmeal was always my go-to in college. And I still have a lot of processed vegan junk food. Like I was always a junk food vegan back then, like complete cookies, Lenny and Larry's, Cliff Bars, all that stuff.
Complete cookies.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah.
I would yeah, I lived off that stuff, and it's easy to hit your macros that way. All that stuff is super high in protein. It just, I noticed I was getting acne, affecting my performance, and it's not very filling too. You eat a whole complete cookie, it's like 400 calories, like 50 grams of sugar, and you can eat like two more still. So
So then you mentioned that's not what you do now. So how has your diet transitioned while you've been lifting like for the last few years, while you've been vegan? How has your diet transitioned to where you are now?
So with me, I think a lot of vegan bodybuilders and maybe just vegans in general, once you get more into veganism, you learn about all these foods you didn't know existed, like nutritional yeast and all these other foods, and you slowly, you get away from all those mock meats that help you transition, and you start eating more whole foods. Me personally, I learned how to cook just from being vegan. I didn't know how to cook really before. And so, yeah, I just switched to more and more whole foods. And at this point right now, I eat around, I'd say like 90% whole foods throughout the week. And I have one cheat day where I just eat whatever I want. But yeah, the transition was really from getting away from those substitutes and more into whole plant-based foods, the healthiest thing you can put in your body.
Okay, cool. So let's get more into how exactly to build muscle on a vegan diet. I had put it up on my Instagram story earlier this week that you probably saw, where I asked my followers, I'm interviewing a vegan bodybuilder. What do you want to know? And we had a bunch of questions. Some of them were repeats, but let me pull those up and we'll go through them. Are there differences between male and female when it comes to building muscle?
The answer is no. And building muscle, in terms of building muscle, really has two aspects to it. There's your training and your nutrition. Both of them should be identical. A lot of women are afraid to lift heavy. They think they're going to be too bulky and muscular. All those women you see that look like really muscular, that are competitive and on the Olympia stage, they're all taking hormones. None of them are natural. As a female, it doesn't matter how heavy you lift. You're not going to ever get to that undesired status. So yeah, there's the training aspect and the nutrition aspect. Both of them should be the same. Of course, the nutritional aspect will vary depending on how many calories you eat. And as males, you're likely to eat more calories and be heavier in body weight. But there really is no difference between male and female.
I was thinking about this before, where people are like, the whole like you need meat for protein, but is it that animal flesh itself has protein? Like what in the animal has protein? Because you're eating flesh.
People go to meat, dairy, and eggs for protein, but they don't understand that not only is protein found in plants, all protein is created in plants. Every amino acid, the essential amino acids, every single amino acid is created in plants. And so a lot of people ask me, where do you get your protein? I tell them, well, if they're not vegan, I get my protein from where your protein gets its protein, from plants, the original source where it's created from. And again, every single amino acid, all those essential amino acids everyone talks about, they're all created in protein. And when you eat animals, you're eating their muscle tissue. So, I mean, it's no different from eating a chicken to a human. Like you're just eating them actual muscle tissue, which is when you could actually bypass that, go right to the source and go directly to the plants. And again, by doing that, like we talked about, you're avoiding all those toxins, those anti-inflammatory substances in their bodies, and all that acidic food, just avoiding all that by going directly to the source. Yeah.
I think it was in What the Health or Forks Over Knives where and I watched it a few years ago, and I had already been vegan until this point, but I didn't know that all like all protein was actually just made in plants. And they broke it down really well. And I was like, that's so weird. We basically could just go, yeah, straight to the plant rather than eat the cow that eats the plant, right? We just are eating like the middleman for some reason. So somebody asked me, do you need more protein when you're vegan to build muscle versus when you're eating meat? Like per how many grams of protein per kilogram or per gram of body weight?
Yeah. So with protein, two people I usually talk to. It's either someone who's been in the gym, who's been eating meat, and someone who's brand new to it. And the person in the gym, I'll always tell protein's overrated. The average American, I think, eats 2 times as much protein as they need and half the amount of fiber they need. So then without the fiber, you're not digesting the protein properly. So there's the person in the gym who I'll tell protein's overrated, you're eating too much protein. And then someone who's new to it, I'll tell, considering whatever you're eating right now, you need adequate protein, but you don't need as much protein as you think you need. So I guess the best ratio is, if you look at the science and the studies, they say between 0.6 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight for building muscle. And it depends on your goals. For me, when I'm maintaining or dieting, I eat from 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then I'll go from 0.6 to 0.8 when I'm trying to build muscle. But yeah, people don't understand protein doesn't make you stronger or bigger or anything. It's just for recovery. So you tear your muscles in the gym, you need to recover and build them with protein. But the size, the muscle mass comes from your performance in the gym. And that performance is affected by your calories and your carbohydrates. So a lot of pro bodybuilders will tell you protein doesn't get you big, carbs get you big. You should be eating more carbs. Carbs are much more important and overlooked compared to protein.
Okay, so it's that like sweet spot between your fats, carbs, and protein. So can you talk a little bit about while we're on the topic of like tearing the muscle and rebuilding it, can you give us a brief overview of in general, like how is muscle actually built in the gym? And what do your macros or macronutrients have to do with that?
Okay, so there's 2 aspects that I talked about for building muscle. And all you need to do is these 2 things to build muscle. You need to be in a caloric surplus, and you need to get better in the gym, which is called progressive overload. So let's start with the diet. So every single day, as a human, you burn an X amount of calories. Of course, with your metabolism, your activity, that could vary day to day. But you need to eat a little bit more than that. So you give your body a little bit extra energy it can use to build that muscle. And then the other aspect is getting better in the gym, which is progressive overload. And that is really where building muscle happens, because depending on your training, how you perform in the gym, and how you improve in the gym, that is going to lead to how you look.
So it's the caloric surplus and then progressive overload.
Yeah. So in order to get better in the gym, how much protein you eat, that's not going to really affect your gym performance. The carbs you eat will affect that. So you can go, I could eat, let's say I'm eating around 300 grams of carbs right now. If I cut that down to 150 and use the extra calories for protein, my gym performance will be worse. I'll probably get weaker and I'll lose muscle. In order to get stronger in the gym and better in the gym, you need carbohydrates. And so your muscles actually have these cells inside them called glycogen cells that hold water. And your body will hold water depending on how many carbs you eat. So when you're eating more carbs, your body's holding more water in those cells. And that's going to lead to improving your performance in the gym, your endurance, getting stronger. And then after your workout, you'll tear muscle and you'll need some protein your adequate protein to heal that. But your performance in the gym is solely based off your calories and carbs. There's nothing to do with the protein. Protein is just for after you tear your muscle, how can you recover properly? Like I said, the diet, you need to be in a surplus of calories so you give your body energy to build that muscle. And then the progressive overload aspect is you need to get better in the gym. So if I'm going to the gym every single day, and I'm doing the same weight week after week after week, you're not gonna build any new muscle. Progressive overload basically means getting better. So you do more weights, more reps, more sets, taking less rest over time. And that's why I like to write my workouts down. As long as you're making that consistent progress in the gym, you're eating more calories than you burn. Um, that's all you need to do to build muscle. And um, in order to improve your performance in the gym, carbohydrates is what's going to be the biggest impact on your workouts, which will lead to gaining muscle as opposed to protein, which you just need, which is why I eat the same amount of protein every day, regardless of my goals. You just need a certain amount just for recovery, but it's not really your performance that's affected by the amount of protein you eat.
I see. So is it like, what if someone did eat more protein than they need? What would happen?
They're just not optimizing their calories. I think Nima Delgado talked about this, how um, he cut his protein back when he went from vegetarian to vegan and upped his carbs at the same exact calories that he's eating. And he just got much better in the gym. And his recovery, he was already eating enough protein that he needed. So his recovery was the same. Of course, it was actually improved from like less inflammation. But yeah, the more carbs led to better performance in the gym, which led to building more muscle. And that protein was really just, going through his body useless when he could use that towards carbs, which will actually improve your gym performance.
You mentioned that to build muscle, you need a caloric surplus. So more calories than you burn every day, right? And the average, like, as everyone has that average number, like 2000 calories a day kind of thing. So more than what you normally would burn, depending on the person. But
Yeah.
If people did that over time, they would build muscle, but they'd also gain fat, right? So what are the different phases of building muscle? How did you go about it?
Yeah. So the most optimal way to build muscle is to bulk and cut. So you go into that caloric surplus, as I talked about. You're eating more more calories than you burn a day to give your body the excess energy to build muscle. And that'll of course lead to weight gain on the scale, which you want because muscle has weight, fat is weight too. So once you reach your desired goal, or whether that's a body weight goal or strength goal, whatever that is, and you will have more body fat in addition to more muscle. So you'll need to shed the fat off to and hold on to that muscle to have that improved look, that improved physique. So then you need to cut properly. If you're competing, it's called, you go on prep for a show. And yeah, you just need to bulk and cut. You bulk to build muscle, but you're going to put on some excess fat. So you need to cut down to get the fat off, but you need to do that properly to hold on to that muscle.
So when you say do that properly, is that kind of like the sweet spot of the fats to carbs to protein ratio when you're bulking is different than when you're cutting? And the amount of calories, of course.
Yeah. So again, when you're bulking, you're eating more calories than you burn to build muscle. It's the opposite when you cut. You need to eat less calories than you burn a day. So your body is going to need to get that energy from somewhere. So it's going to pull it off your body. And your training needs to be right and your nutrition needs to be right. And with those two things right, your body will take the fat instead of the muscle.
How does that ratio of macronutrients change if you're bulking versus cutting? Like, would you have less carbs when you're cutting?
Well, yeah, you need to take the calories from somewhere. So carbs is usually, since the majority of your calories will come from carbohydrates, that will be the first thing that you will slowly cut back over time. And then fat occasionally, but the protein should stay the same. And again, that protein number in grams is a lot less than most people think. 0.6 to 0.8 grams is the sweet spot. And I think just for optimizing muscle, anything over 0.8 is, there's no difference really. So yeah, protein stays the same. And then the calories will need to come from carbs and fat.
Like, do you need to change your ratio of macronutrients or just cut the calories back?
Considering protein should stay the same, regardless of if you're bulking or cutting. If anything, when you cut, you want to increase your protein a little bit. That's going to help your body retain more muscle. And yeah, the calories, it's just mostly the calories, the carbs, and the fat you need to cut back, keeping the protein the same.
How did you see your muscle building progressing when you were vegan versus not vegan? Like, how, on average, how anyone in general, vegan or not vegan, how many pounds of muscle do people usually put on in a year with your kind of consistent training?
So that varies depending on how long you've been lifting. And building muscle it's a downward exponential slope. So the first year, on average, I think people put on anywhere from 15 to maybe 25 pounds of muscle. The next year will be 10 to 15. It comes down yearly. That's in terms of pounds of muscle. And that's with everything else optimal, your diet optimal, and everything else as it should be. And it's no different on a vegan diet. If anything, you're more optimizing your natural potential. Like I said, when I switched over to a vegan diet, my gym performance improved a lot. I was optimizing building muscle at that point. My strength was increasing, my recovery. With all those other things improving, that leads to more muscle gains as opposed to not optimizing it when you're eating a lot of anti-inflammatory acidic foods. There's an optimal amount you can put on every year, and a lot really plays into this. There's your genetics. I think genetically, if you can put on more than 50% of muscle naturally, you're like in the top 1% of people. So genetics matter. Optimizing your nutrition, your sleep. Sleep is so important. There's always different aspects to it. But if anything, switching to a vegan diet, it'll improve your gym performance, which is going to optimize the amount of muscle you put on every year as it comes down.
I see. And one other thing is, what about rest days? So people, how many days do you train a week, and how many days should people normally train a week? Because some people would be like, wouldn't going to the gym 7 days a week be the best because I'm maximizing my training?
So recovery is just as important as training. And, a lot plays into this. Depends on your recovery, how much sleep you're getting, but it's anywhere from 3 to 5 days. The average person should be weightlifting. And again, for newbies, there's a lot that goes into it, depending on what program you do. There's all these different weightlifting programs, depending on your schedule. So yeah, I'd say it's a case by case basis for that.
What does your schedule usually look like in terms of, full body training per week, and how many different exercises?
So as a natural lifter, one of the most important things is frequency. So you want to hit your muscles as many times as you can during the week, and volume as well is important. Volume is the total amount of weights, reps, and sets you do for that muscle a week. So the sweet spot with that, I think, a great program a lot of lifters do is called push-pull legs, where you have a push day, which consists of chest, shoulders, and triceps. You have a pull day, which is back, biceps, abs, traps, rear delts, and then a leg day too. And that's really the sweet spot where you can hit everything 2 to 3 times a week and get a lot of volume in, which is the total amount of sets per muscle. So that's what I do. I do a push-pull legs. So I'm hitting all my muscles 2 times a week and still getting a lot of volume in. And then there's also, there's full body training. And then of course, it's called the bro split, where you do 1 muscle per day. That's actually the least optimal compared to the others. And it depends again if you're natural or not. Enhanced athletes, pro bodybuilders will just hit everything once a week, or even go to the gym 2 times a day. But when you're taking all those hormones and stuff, you're able to recover a lot quicker.
Now let's talk about, what does a daily day of eating usually look like for you when you're bulking? What kinds of, what does a breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, how many times a day do you eat, kind of thing? And on top of that, what kind of vegan protein sources do you include in your diet? And then we'll break down the different types of protein and what they're made of.
So depending on my goals, the quantities will vary, but the meals I eat are almost always the same. So I guess I work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So Monday through Friday, I'll eat pretty much the same thing every single day. And all the food's delicious, so I don't really get bored of it all. But I always have smoothies in the morning. And considering I was one of those people who always used to eat eggs and oatmeal, like a classic bodybuilder so many years ago, I switched over to a smoothie. And a lot of people, they think they need protein in the morning when you can actually just get it later on in the day, and you actually don't need as much as you need.
Oh, so you don't fill your smoothie with like protein powder or anything?
No. If I needed to hit my protein for the day, I would, but I'm able to easily use my other meals to get that protein intake. So, so I'll have a smoothie in the morning. the quantities will vary depending on if I'm dieting or I'm bulking, but it's always usually oats, some type of oats, some type of frozen fruit. I've been recently having blueberries. Dates are really, really important, I think, to have that sweet taste. Plant milk, and then again, if I need to put more protein or fat, I'll add walnuts or protein powder to that. Then for lunch, I like to have some type of bowl, like a burrito bowl or like a quinoa bowl. So I'll do quinoa, some type of bean or legumes, vegetables, or a burrito bowl like that. And then dinner is usually that's like my most simple meal. I have a protein source where it's either my three main sources of protein, sure, tofu, tempeh, or seitan. I have a carb source. If I'm like dieting, it'll be rice. If I'm bulking, it'll be pasta. And then I'll have vegetables with that. And then I allow myself to have one, like, I guess, junk food a day, which I usually have like some type of Cliff Bar during the day. And then I guess post workout, just for convenience, I'll have like protein powder and some fruit. But yeah, that's my Monday through Friday usual diet.
Nice. So, so what is the weekend like? Is that your one cheat day is like on a weekend?
Yeah, so Saturdays is it's like a nice break from the week where I can just eat whatever I want. And yeah, it's when I usually try all those vegan restaurants, vegan pizzas and stuff like that. Enjoy that. And then Sundays I play around with them more. So I could have some type of oats or some smoothie bowl or acai bowl in the morning. Lunch, different sandwiches or burritos or tacos or something. Tempeh sandwiches are really good, barbecue tempeh or buffalo tempeh sandwiches. And then dinners, again, simple. I like to eat noodles or rice, seitan, tofu or tempeh, vegetables. Just pretty basic. Just combine your protein, carbs, and your vegetables together.
You mentioned that you have your three go-to protein sources, tofu, tempeh, seitan. Can you explain where all of these protein sources come from?
Yeah. So I didn't know what tempeh or seitan was before I went vegan either. So tempeh is basically the stage I think before tofu, where it's fermented soybeans, and tofu is the stage I think after that, or it's somewhere along the chain after that. And seitan comes from gluten, vital wheat gluten. And tempeh, tofu, and seitan are the three I'd say go-tos for most vegan bodybuilders and protein sources in general. And before I say anything else, like eating those three sources, it's all about how you cook them. And that goes with any food too. When I first went vegan, I cooked plain tempeh and tofu, and it was so bland, and I hated it.
Well, it's the same thing with chicken. Like if you just have a piece of chicken with nothing on it, it's like the only reason it tastes good is because you season it with plants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it all depends on how you season it. And tofu is very absorbent. It takes on the flavor of whatever you cook or marinate it in. So once I learned how to cook those three foods, those are like my main three sources of protein. Seitan is super high in protein. Just for convenience, I buy a brand just directly from the store. It's called Uptown Naturals. It comes in a little box, and it's like 75 grams of protein. Just throw it in a pan. Super easy. And then another three sources of protein, protein powder. Again, not at all necessary, just very convenient to have. Instead of making a meal, you can just throw powder in with some plant milk, have some fruit, and you got a quick meal. TVP, textured vegetable protein. That's another one. It's very quick, easy, and high in protein. The last one, again, I don't have it anymore, but mock meats are super high in protein. Those vegan mock meats, especially in 2021, super easy.
Like Gardein and those other like vegan chicken nuggets and kind of things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about do you have any like beans, lentils, edamame beans, like pinto beans, those kind of things?
So right now I have beans, chickpeas, almost every day. I just mix that in like a quinoa bowl with vegetables. And yeah, lentils I'll have almost every week too. So those are super convenient and versatile. You can put them in like anything.
Yeah, exactly. What do you usually marinate your tofu, tempeh, seitan with?
So I
Like, what's
usually
your
like
go-to marinade?
tofu. I think is good with either teriyaki sauce. I buy a store brand stir fry sauce, Those two are really good. That's just been my go-to last few years. I used to use others, different sauces. Yeah, teriyaki and stir fry sauce are really good with those. Seitan, I like a barbecue seitan, so I like to use barbecue sauce with that. And tempeh, you can go either way too. Any sauce you want. It really takes on the taste of what you cook it in.
Someone said, do you track your protein exactly and your go-to foods for gaining weight and muscle? We did just talk about your go-to protein sources. And well, when you say gaining weight and muscle, it depends on how many calories you eat, right? So you said you have to eat in a caloric surplus.
Yeah, it depends on calories and again, how advanced you are. So someone who's gaining 20 pounds after lifting for 10 years will gain probably 19 pounds of fat, while someone who's been first year lifting will gain majority of muscle. So it depends on how much more muscle your body can physically put on.
Okay. And yeah, so if someone's new to weightlifting, you're saying like they'll gain fat muscle a lot quicker. So yeah, that person asked, do you track your protein exactly? So do you have a calculator, an app that you like to use, or how do you track your protein? And is it like down to the like very, very specific, or do you just kind of eyeball it?
Um, well, first off, yes, I do track my protein every single day. I have a food scale and I weigh everything out and make sure I get enough protein a day. But I also know you don't need to do that. I just personally like doing it because put your mind at peace. You don't have to really overthink that I eat too much protein, too little protein. And that's another thing with counting your macros and how many calories you eat. People think it's a huge hassle, but once you get used to it, it's super easy and you don't think about it. It's just like taking a shower or anything else you do. It's like second nature and it puts a lot of less stress on you too.
Okay, someone said people say that it's much harder to gain muscle mass and takes a longer time. Is that true?
So like I said, building muscle happens with your performance in the gym and your recovery. And your performance in the gym is it's solely based off your calories and your carbs. So when you switch from a meat-based diet to a vegan diet, your carb sources will be the same. You're still going to eat your rice, your pasta. If anything, your recovery is going to improve, and you'll have less inflammation, less acidic foods, and that will improve your performance. So if anything, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to improve your performance in the gym. And as long as you're eating adequate protein, that's what you'll need to recover later on. But in terms of the gym, it'll be exactly the same, if not improved, because you're eating same amount of calories, same carb sources. It just your recovery will be different on a vegan diet.
Right. And you experienced that firsthand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. So someone else asked, does soybean pose a risk of breast cancer?
No. So soy is actually, it contains phytoestrogens, which are plant-based estrogens that do not affect the human body. You need to eat phytoestrogens in such a large amount to have any effect on your testosterone, or that it's actually virtually like almost impossible to eat that much soy to affect your testosterone. And you can look at, there's tons of different studies, so many doctors out there have like YouTube videos or in documentaries talking about it. But you can even look at, there's this one vegan bodybuilder, Brian Turner, and he made a video where he ate like a block of tofu every meal.
I was like just going to mention that one. Yeah.
Yeah. He ate it like every meal for like a month and his testosterone, I think, went up on it. And one more thing is, it's funny, the people who ask me this question, they usually eat dairy, and dairy has mammalian estrogens in it, which do affect your testosterone and your estrogen levels. So
that are not like phytoestrogens.
Yeah, they're mammalian estrogens, which are the exact same estrogens that are found in humans.
Oh, okay, okay.
So usually people who ask me, is soy affecting your estrogen? Not only is it not, but the dairy they're eating is affecting theirs. So it's kind of opposite of what people think it is.
Okay, then someone asked, does soybean lower testosterone levels in the body? So I guess it's what you just mentioned is like Brian Turner, that vegan bodybuilder, he had done a video where his testosterone levels actually went up after eating blocks of tofu, like for a month or a week.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you know why it increases testosterone?
I'm not sure why it increases testosterone, but yeah, like I said, it won't affect your testosterone or your estrogen levels because they're it's a completely different type of estrogen, phytoestrogen that's found in soybeans.
Okay. And then someone asked, how do you get enough natural protein daily? Like not taking protein powders and stuff. And you had touched on this. You said the protein powders aren't necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
protein powders are convenient, not necessary at all. Again, tofu, tempeh, seitan are the big three. If you eat just, I guess, one of each a day, you'll get maybe 200 grams of protein, which is way more than like 99% of people will need. So those three I'd say are my go-to and the best protein sources in terms of lower carbs, lower fat. But just eating adequate protein and adequate calories, you'll get more than enough protein you need for the average person.
Mm-hmm.
Tempeh and tofu can be pricier depending on where you live. Seitan you can make in such large amounts,
Mm-hmm.
super cheap, and it's way higher in protein than the other two. So I guess it depends on your geographical location. And again, if you're building muscle, you're going to the gym, you're doing all these things, I'm sure you have the money to spend a couple extra dollars on tempeh and invest in your health now.
Good point. And I wanted to mention when we say seitan, it's spelled Seitan for people listening, and you can make it at home with vital wheat gluten. So next question. So someone said, and you had also answered this, what are the best plant-based protein substitutes for bodybuilding and where to find them? So the ones that you're talking about, I personally have never seen seitan, like barely, if ever, in my grocery stores. Tempeh once in a while, and that's it. Tofu, obviously, like I see it all the time.
Where I live in New Jersey. I see them everywhere. Yeah, I do see
okay.
them. I guess I'm lucky for that. It's something I haven't experienced. I know. I guess, like you said, it's hard to find for you. I guess some people might struggle with that. It's something I actually didn't think about. It's been convenient, I guess, for me to have. There's different types of tofu. The tofu you want is extra firm tofu. That's the highest in protein, and that tastes the best. And you can make it with anything really. The just regular tofu or firm tofu, it's more for like noodles and soup and stuff. But extra firm tofu is the one that's the more dense, higher in protein. That's the go-to tofu that you want. I guess I've just been buying it for so long now.
Good point.
Forgot there's other types.
I don't know if you ever use silken tofu. I know, as you said, it's not as high in calories as like extra firm tofu because it's not as dense, but it's really great in like smoothies and like puddings and everything because it's super soft and like has a very fluffy texture.
Yeah, actually, my sister made a pudding pie with silken tofu, and that was really good. So
yes,
yeah, it's good
like
for
high protein desserts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For people who have a sweet tooth, you can incorporate silken tofu into a lot of desserts and just have that nice consistency. And also like chickpea cookie dough. I'm not sure if you ever made that. Where you can blend chickpeas, dates, and like chocolate chips or whatever, oats, and make a high protein cookie dough.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest challenge is, in terms of diet, is just using substitutes is the best thing to do. Take things out one by one, replace your protein, replace your plant-based milks. And yeah, the other challenges have just been social aspects with family and friends. That is a different topic, but those are usually the challenges, I think, switching to veganism. It's not the actual what you eat diet itself.
Yeah. And also when you're switching to plant-based milks, did you ever have you seen the Silk or other milk brands, like vegan milk brands in the store that are like the protein fortified ones? So it's like high protein almond milk, high protein cashew milk, and they're super good, but they have like double, triple the amount of protein than the regular box. And they're right next, it's in the same aisle, almost the same price.
I've seen pictures on the internet. I've never seen them in person. I'm actually waiting to see them soon.
It's really cool. Yeah. Cause we don't have many here, but when I go to grocery stores in Michigan, like I see that, I'm like, that's so cool. Cause if you're drinking plant-based milk anyways, you could just buy the high protein version, same brand, same flavor. It just gives you that extra protein boost.
Yeah.
If you're looking to, okay. Next, do you meal prep your meals for the week on a Sunday?
Yeah. So I just meal prep just my lunch for the week. Again, just what we talked about with quinoa or burrito bowls. Super simple. And yeah, I guess my diet is always very simple. I like to eat simple and just eat whole foods to hit my macros. You can play around with it more, but I think eating whole foods is optimal for performance and health.
And the last question someone asked was, what are your views on artificial meats? Because I know a lot of people have that argument of like I saw this picture where it showed like the vegan burger versus like a pig. And it was like ingredients in the pig, pork, ingredients in the burger, like XYZ, which one's
Mhm.
healthier to you? And it was like promoting like meat. But what's your take on artificial meats? Do you think it's like, highly processed, stay away from it, or healthier than animal meats? Or I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's definitely just as healthy, if not healthier, than animal meats. And although they're marketed as just as pork or beef or whatever, in that you're getting all this cancerous substances, cholesterol, mercury from fish, all these are toxins that are in those ingredients. And yeah, with mock meats, they are processed, but that's why I recommend minimizing them. Maybe a few times a week. Don't eat them every day. I used to eat them every day. And a lot of, again, people asking me these questions are eating candy and all these other processed things, or they're just pointing their fingers, but their diet is mostly processed anyway. So compared to the average processed food, there's no different at all.
And
It's
the disease that the animals are getting being crammed together, all those
yeah,
diseases, we ingest them when we're eating their
exactly,
flesh.
exactly. Yeah, there's all these diseases, cholesterol, saturated
Steroids,
fats.
no, steroids, hormone, and well, steroids because they make the animal bigger, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they hormones. I forget. There's like a number that they put out there where someone told me they inject. It was in some documentary where it's like 60 different injections per animal or a day or a week or something. And there's just all these different just in those animals. There's hundreds of toxins and things that you don't even know what you're putting in your body because they don't even tell you. They're not even ingredients that would be
That's a
ever
good
listed.
point because they're not actually ingredients, right? On a meat packet, you would never see, on like a chicken packet, you never see ingredients because people know it's like, oh, just chicken. But you're right. There's so many ingredients that go into what the
Just in
animals
that
actually
animal's
eat.
body.
But
Yeah,
they're not really considered ingredients. So they don't have to mention it.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next, I wanted to ask who are or were your inspirations in terms of vegan bodybuilders? So maybe people can go check out their Instagram or their YouTube channels.
So I consider myself very self-motivated. So I like to inspire myself. And there are actually, I'd say, three vegan bodybuilders I look up to that I follow on a daily basis. I watch their stories or posts. Um, and those would be Nimai Delgado. I forget his name. It's Viper something. And Brian
Viper?
Turner. Yeah.
Let me look him up. I'll link these in the description so people can check them out. Are there any other resources that you had used in the beginning or any resources online that you recommend people check out if they want to build muscle on a vegan diet?
Yeah. So the majority of information I say I got when I was younger, because I've been doing this now for 8 years, has been through YouTube and really good YouTubers, natural YouTubers on building muscle. And so that goes from bodybuilding, just general YouTubers, and then of course, like different vegan bodybuilders. Like Brian Turner is really good. Actually, I learned how to make tofu from one video he posted, just called how to make the perfect tofu, and he shows you how to make like a really crispy tofu. So yeah, I'd say YouTube has been a lot of learning for me for bodybuilding and veganism too. And it's really how I went vegan. That YouTube video I saw of Gary Yourofsky was from YouTube, which made me transition to a vegan diet.
So I guess that kind of leads to my next question was if somebody wanted to get started on building muscle, but doing it on a vegan diet, what would their first steps be?
The first step would always be, I would say, get your nutrition right first before you do anything in the gym. Find out how many calories you burn a day. If you want to build muscle, then you need to increase that by 100 to 200 calories. Calculate how much protein you need, fat you need, and then from that, you can, with the calories, protein, and fat, you can find out how many carbs you need. There's a lot of good websites. Just bodybuilding.com is good. Okay. What I would recommend is actually it's a YouTube video. I don't remember who posted it, but you can just type in how do you find your maintenance calories on YouTube, and that's really good. And then from there, take your body weight, multiply that by 0.6 to 0.8, and that'll tell you your body weight in pounds. Multiply that by 0.6 to 0.8, That'll tell you the amount of protein you need. Then, depending on your personal preference for fat, if you eat a lot of fatty foods and you like a high fat diet, you could multiply that by 0.4, 0.5. If you're on the lower end like me, personally, when I eat a higher fat diet, I feel terrible and like lethargic, so I eat lower fat. I would multiply it by 0.3 to 0.4 grams per pound of body weight. And with those two and the calories, you can calculate your carbs that way. And that'll be your diet going into it. And then the gym is a whole different aspect. If you're a beginner, you probably want to do push-pull legs or a full body routine. And if you're more advanced, you can play around with them more.
Are there any websites you'd recommend or any YouTubers for beginner, like a training sequence, like a beginner's training, like how to what's the word? How to schedule your training weeks. Like when you're talking about what exercises to do, how to do them, and how often to do them week by week. Is there a reference that you'd recommend people to start off by using, like follow this guide or something?
So personally, when I first got into it, actually, I wrote my own training programs.
Okay.
And actually, all these past 8 years, I've always had my own programs. I never followed a certain coach or famous Instagram's workout program. I always had my own programs I wrote.
But where'd you get the information to make up your own programs? Was it just like that push pull? Like what was the last word? Push pull.
Legs.
Yeah. Was it just using that method? You're like, okay, I know which muscles I want to train, so I'm going to just pick exercises that target those muscles.
Yeah. So it was just learning the muscle, all different parts of the muscle, which exercises are best for it. There's actually a lot that goes into it. Then the amount of volume per muscle, how to schedule your training so you're not fatiguing one area. And there's actually a lot of research that I did into it back in the day. And I wrote several programs. I used to train people, and now I just have them conveniently to switch up my routine as I want. But what I'd recommend for most people is there's a lot of good, it's all online for free. You can find any program. Bodybuilding.com is good ones. And then a lot of YouTubers too. Unfortunately, I mean, they'll charge you because they have to make a profit too. But yeah, on the internet today, you can find any program depending on your preference.
Oh, that's super cool. You used to train people?
Yeah, just recreationally for fun. Nothing like I don't have a certification or anything, but
right. But I mean, you had enough knowledge to be able to help other people reach their goals or start training. That's super cool. What did you find that people most struggled with?
100% is diet.
And this was were these people who were trying to be vegan?
No.
Okay.
I always pushed, I didn't push, but I always recommended and led by example for a vegan diet. And that led to them eating more plants. But the biggest struggle was always they would bulk and then not have the discipline to cut again. So they would just be, call them a forever bulker where they just bulk forever. And so that's I think a struggle with a lot of people is, if you're going to do the bulking cutting phase, make sure you're mentally prepared to enjoy the bulk, eat your food, lift heavy, but then understand you need to have the discipline to come back down after. So you're not just putting on all this weight, all this body fat, and then stuck there because you thought that was what you needed to do. So
right. Yeah, I guess we can wrap up because we covered everything, talked about your transition to becoming vegan, how to build muscle, vegan protein sources, busted a bunch of vegan myths, especially soy, which should not get a bad rep. And yeah, talked about, all the macronutrients, what you eat in a day. And I think we covered a ton of information. It's really nice that I can have this episode to refer people back to. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I get a lot of these questions. I mean, I've gotten a lot of these questions over the last few years. So it's good that, I can always reference this segment here, which is good to really cover everything. That'll be really useful in terms of everything with really all the myths with veganism, supplementation, but also bodybuilding and everything too. So I think it's great to get everything in one quick podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you again, Rohan, for joining, and we will see you guys next time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.